Dragon's Dogma 2. Remember the hot swings with the biddies? That's right, now you remember. Suddenly it's all coming back to you. In any case, Dragon's Dogma was an extremely anticipated game, and people loved it. 10 FPS in cities? Literally could not care less. The game is just that good, honestly. And then a couple of months passed, well, a couple of weeks, honestly, and everyone forgot about it. Which makes honestly sense because, well, it's a really fun and good game, but honestly, most people don't see the reason to replay it. So, what's happening with Dragon's Dogma 2 now?
Was perhaps my most anticipated game of 2024. Just at the start of the year, I sat down with the first game and its subsequent expansion, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, and I actually finished it twice. Now, the first Dragon's Dogma is a very
There's an expansion? What do you mean there's an expansion? Does anyone know there's an expansion? Leave in the comments if you knew that there's an expansion. I had no idea.
very interesting game because it uses some very non-traditional philosophies such as the general lack of being able to fast travel everywhere, and it doesn't hold your hand at all, letting you explore the world on your own and learn the mechanics of the game through just simply playing the game. However, for as much charm as DD1 had, it was absolutely lacking in certain areas. Areas that I was hoping its successor would improve upon, and in a way, it did. In other ways, it didn't. And so today I want to sit down and look at the things that DD2 did right, what it missed the mark on, what's in store for the future, and so on. You could say
Dragon's Dogma 1 is a very, very specific case in gaming. It is one of those rare instances where the game is good, it gets critically decent acclaim, but it doesn't really blow up, even though it has all the rights to blow up. One of the things that you will hear about Dragon's Dogma 1 is the fact that it was literally Dark Souls before Dark Souls became a thing. And that's, by the way, pretty much true for the most part. Yes, it was effectively the first Souls-like game before Souls-like games were a thing. And the consensus on this situation is like this. It came too early. People were not able to actually recognize the good parts of it. And it only got a critical acclaim in true sense when Dark Souls came out as a thing. And, well, now Dragon's Dogma 2 comes out and everyone loves it. Why? Well, because Dark Souls exists effectively. I know it's a convoluted and strange thing, but it's pretty accurate, even though that probably does piss off a couple of people.
say that this video is sort of a critique, but that might give the idea that I'll be objectively correct at all times, which I probably won't be even if I try to be, so do take this video for what it is, a long nitpicky video with my own opinions you may or may not agree with. Also,
Nice.
this video is going to be filled with spoilers, especially towards the end, so just have that in mind if you have
Oh no, he's gonna explain what the brine is. I don't actually even remember what was the point of the brine. Whatever.
haven't finished the game yet. First of all, I think it only prudent to mention the launch controversy back when DD2 released, the microtransaction debacle. To give some context to the situation, Hideaki Itsuno, the director leading the development of the game, had famously stated in an interview with IGN that travel is boring? That's not true. It's only an issue because your game is boring. All you have to do is make travel fun. Unfortunately, this statement has been used on many occasions to drag on Mr. Itsuno, and while it can be pretty funny to meme on lead figures in the gaming industry from time to time, I think it's important to bring his entire quote into context because his statement was actually longer. That's why you place things in the right direction for players to discover, or come up with enemy appearance methods that create different experiences each time, or force the players into blind situations where they don't know whether it's safe or not 10 meters in front of them. In any case, the first part of the quote had an unfortunate effect on the launch of the game, as when launch day arrived, Capcom elected to add various items to the DLC store, among these items being port crystals, which are items you can place in-game that allowed you to instantly teleport to the location whenever you use fairy stones. Now, yes, you can find all the port crystals you need by just playing the game, but many players found it distasteful of Itsuno to essentially throw shade at other games that uses unrestricted fast traveling, yet still allows for fast travel in his own game, with the addition of adding paid DLC for the sake of convenience. Now, the issue of Itsuno's statement is twofold, because the idea of travel being fun in DD2 isn't necessarily always the case, but we'll get to that in a moment. In any case, as I've now played through the game twice, I'd say that I'm willing to look past the slight oopsie from Capcom and Itsuno. However, I've got a lot to say about Dragon's Dogma 2, both good and bad, so let's get.
Okay, so first of all, I absolutely do not remember any controversy uh, that came from his statement about fast travel. People were looking at the fact that fast travel is not in the game and can only be achieved through an item you found in game that was supposed to be sparing and rare because of that statement. But people were not actually dissing the statement because most people understood, yeah, that sentence is actually technically true. If it's fun to travel, it's fun to travel. You don't need fast travel. True, true. But fast travel is a nice thing to have because sometimes you want the fast travel no matter what. That statement was not a problem. The problem was the fact that they had a pay-to-win shop. And yes, it was pay-to-win. But, I mean, it's by Capcom. And, well, Capcom does this to every game. And the Capcom pay-to-win shops are ridiculously hilarious. I don't remember what was the item in the paid shop, but it's still there, by the way. But it was some kind of item that you could buy in the in the shop for a pretty substantial amount of real life money, but you can farm 10 times more in roughly 3 minutes in the game if you want to. Those are Capcom shops. They're completely busted and stupid. Capcom is my golden example to what I go to always when the conversation is about pay to win selling in shops. Listen, you can sell the most minor stuff pay to win. People are gonna be mad, and there's gonna be people who actually buy it no matter what. You don't need to make the acquisition of items hard in the game because there are gonna be people who do the pay to win thing in the shop no matter what. It doesn't matter if you can get an item an infinity amount in the game without any bugs in a matter of 5 minutes of farming. If if some people will buy it in the shop to make it infinity plus one, just because they're that kind of person. And Capcom, I feel, is a great example of it because of how they did things, and it's hilarious. Oh yeah.
Get into it, yeah. Firstly, I think the game opens really well. The foreshadowing of your Arisen's true position in the world and your subsequent capture and forced servitude lays the foundation for a pretty interesting plot. You escape and find yourself on the back of a griffin, and soon enough, you're trekking cross-country on your way to the capital, Fernworth. And I think the game does a great job of teaching you the basics and then serving the world to you on a silver platter. This means that, just like with the first game, DD2 has very little hand-holding and it trusts the player to find their own way in the world. And you know what? I appreciate when games.
See, this person understands. He understands the. This is why I play only female characters whenever possible, unless they're ugly, which means I can't play any modern day games on for the most part.
Do this. Just like with Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and Elden Ring.
I'm sorry, but Breath of the Wild is for people who like twinks. Fight me.
Exploring and finding your way around the world on your own terms gives you a type of feeling that not many games can provide, and I absolutely adore this with DD2. Exploration is also made easier with your pawns, and the fact that there are abilities that allow you to launch your pawn or yourself, like with the catapult launch, is such a cool detail that is just so distinctively unique to Dragon's Dogma. More on that later, by the way. And this brings us to the pawns, our friendly custom-made men and women of servitude.
Pawns are genius because they are admitted slaves, but they're good because they have no conscience. Yes. So this is great. I love it.
Dude. Now, pawns are really the main mechanic that makes Dragon's Dogma stand out as a franchise. Instead of having other players join you, you instead have companions that are sort of meant to replicate a co-op experience. And for the most part, I really enjoy the pawns in Dragon's Dogma 2 because, you see, pawns aren't like regular NPCs. Actually, they are programmed to learn from your behavior. So if you use certain tactics against specific enemy types, your pawn will actually learn and replicate your behavior, both successfully and unsuccessfully. In combat, it's usually the former, and anywhere else, it's always the latter. What I mean by that is I can pretty much count on one hand the times where my pawn has actually been useful in exploring the world. I
don't
cannot
like
tell you the
this.
amount of times I've specifically wanted them to throw my Arisen to get to higher ground, only for them to stand there gawking and running around in circles. Case in point, the pawn system isn't perfect, and they're usually pretty dumb. That said, they're still useful, especially as I mentioned during combat, where they'll usually
I mean, it's not the biggest problem unless you're playing, a class that needs to buff the pawns and shit.
prioritize the most useful spell or ability to help you out. One thing that I don't love very much is the frequency of which random pawns will walk up to you and force you into a conversation, all the frickin' time. It became so common on my first playthrough that I got so extremely annoyed that I started
Oh
murdering pawns
no!
left and right for having the gall to look at me. Leave me the alone. God, you know what? These pawns are actually way too similar to players than I give them credit for. They're really that annoying. Then again, random pawns do actually engage with enemies you're fighting, so they can act like backup from time to time, so they're not all bad. Also, you can throw them like sacks of potatoes, which is also a viable tactic. And while we're on the subject of combat, let's talk about it for a moment, yeah?
By sacks of potatoes, he means the Irish.
First of all, this game is all about the combat and the big boss fights. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Sure, there
Bro!
is a story and there are characters, both of which we'll get to later in the video,
Who
but
cares?
really, aside from the unique pawn system, the combat is most
Well, to be fair, the story is about, again, slavery, so 10 out of 10.
definitely the main draw of this franchise. And as someone who adored DD1's combat, I can wholeheartedly say that I don't think Itsuno and his team could have found a way to make combat better than it is in DD2. Yes, I really think it's that good, specifically when you're fighting the bigger enemies. And even if you're fighting goblins or bandits and other smaller enemies, there's just something that feels
Nice.
right about swinging a massive sword or axe around and clocking some creature right in the noggin and seeing them take off like a baseball. It's just so gratifying
I'm actually obviously not paying attention to the creature.
that it's managed to keep me hooked for hours and hours, and it's even better when you're facing off against the bosses. I mean, stabbing a big cyclops through its skull for massive damage is so incredibly satisfying, and it gave me a similar feeling as to something like Dark Souls or Elden Ring when you finally beat that boss after your 10th try. Really, I think
Oh, 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 you poor sweet summer children who haven't played Lost Ark and are like, I'll be the No, it's easy. You just haven't played actually hard games, okay? Elden Ring is like, your father went away to buy cigarettes and did return the difficulty levels of hardness, okay? It's not true hardness, right? You know, you're not growing up in the ghetto and all your family's intact. It's not really challenging in the slightest, okay? Go play a real game. Lost Ark, baby. And then tell me that a boss with 3 repeating patterns and mechanics is harder than a boss with 50 mechanics. That all are gonna wipe you if you fail, by the way, so have fun with that, baby. 10 out of 10. Okay? And the best part about Dragon's Dogma is, obviously, the combat, because the whole game is kind of based around combat. I'm sorry, have you seen the skills in this game? Stand AFK 30 seconds, cast a meteor shower on your dumb opponent. It is beautiful! Everyone plays Dragon's Dogma 2 because of the combat, and the combat is the most important part of the game by far. There's nothing that comes close to it. Exploration, sure, not bad, 10 out of... well, 8 out of 10, I guess. But combat matters more.
Think Capcom could have done away with the story, the characters, and other fluff and just called this fantasy monster killing game, and it would have still sold like hotcakes. That's just how good responsive
They should have actually called it Dark Dragon Killing Souls. Then this would sell billions.
and satisfying the combat itself is. And the best part is that every class in the game feels very distinct and different from one another. So whenever you start to grow tired of a certain moveset or play
Oh yeah. One of the big things is you are every class. You just need to find a guy who resets you, and well, every class is distinct, and there's class combinations, and this was one of the most exciting things about Dragon's Dogma 2.
playstyle, you just hop on over to another vocation. The best part about the combat specifically are obviously the finishers and maester abilities, these being the ultimate skill of any vocation, and you have to actively seek out vocation masters to learn these. Not that it's hard to do, but some of these you have to put more work into than others to get, like the Archer's Heavenly Shot, where you
Yeah,
need
it's
to have a high
annoying.
enough affinity with the leader of the elves to unlock it. But once you do unlock it, woof, I straight up got addicted to using this in every encounter after unlocking it.
Yeah, that's why people love this. Look,
It's pretty much the
stuff.
same situation with every other Maester ability. They're a really good reward for that class fantasy, and I've seldom felt that type of power up in other games, at least in terms of raw progression. Oh, and don't get me started on Meteoron, which is by far my favorite magic
This is what I was talking about, by the way.
spell in any game ever.
Not let down your guard, even for a moment.
Now, as we're still on the topic of fighting things, we really should talk about a pretty big topic among critics of this game, and
Zero monster versatility.
that's the enemy variety,
Yep.
or lack thereof. And well, I agree for the most part that there is some serious lack of interesting encounter design after you reach a certain point in the game. That being, well, pretty much the whole game. Now don't get me wrong, the big bosses you find on various parts of the map are all very fun to fight, like the Cyclops, Minotaurs, Ogres, Griffins, and Drakes. The thing is, goblins, humans, stone lizards, and harpies are the main enemy forces you'll be eliminating as you trek through Vermund and Batal, and well, it gets pretty tiring pretty quickly. It gets especially bad once you reach Batal, whereupon you'll be assaulted by monsters every 10 feet or so, and at times it feels like you're constantly swamped no matter what you do. And to be perfectly frank with you, this whole area made me think for a moment that Capcom just couldn't find anything super interesting to add to this region, so they just filled it up with filler monsters to make you not think about slogging through another countryside on your way to the next chapter of the main story. Now don't misunderstand, I think Batal is pretty cool. There are definitely some interesting encounters there, but just like with Vermund and the Volcanic Isle, these are very few and far between. Say for example, Medusa, who you can find in a specific cave in the southwest section of Batal, and killing her through decapitation grants you her head, which you can then use to turn enemies to stone. Now that's what I call a cool enemy. It's the same story with the Sphinx, but instead of greeting you with hostility,
Hello.
she challenges you through riddles, which is a really novel idea in of itself. The only thing that I didn't like very much about the riddles though is that one where you have to remember
It's shit. It's literal shit.
where you found your first Seeker token. Yeah, screw that one. Other than these two and some other encounters during the endgame, the game is unfortunately filled with pretty much the same enemies over and over. And as much as I enjoy stabbing 30 Cyclopses
Well, this is the situation where it's like, well, Diablo 4 had like 5 enemies. Here's 4. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. But again, still fun enough.
through the head, it does get pretty stale after a while, even if you're just going through the main story and want to get to the end of the game. The strange thing is that DD2 is actually missing several of the previous monsters DD1 had, like the Cockatrice, which, to be fair, was mostly just a reskin of the Griffin. Still, there's also the Vile Eye, the Living Armor, and several others
That's a beholder, by the way. Fun fact. Wait.
mostly just a reskin of the Griffin. Still, there's also the Vile
That's a beholder, obviously. But fun fact, Wizards of the Coast has exclusive rights. Well, they just have a copyright on the beholder. So anytime you try to use something that's flying and it's a giant eye, congratulations. You're probably paying Wizards of the Coast royalties, or you're getting sued. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Eye, the living armor, and several others that were introduced in Dark Arisen that simply just didn't make it to DD2. Now, it would be understandable if you wanted to introduce a slew of new monsters to the game, but unfortunately, most of the enemy types are pretty much the exact same as in DD1. And aside from the repetitive...
It is so... That's my phone. Still haven't put a great anime sound, but you know, it is what it be. Anyway, they could have put so much different crap in Dragon's Dogma 2. It would be amazing. And yet they didn't. I mean, this is just random mythology bullshit 101, honestly. You could put so many things, but they didn't, which is insane of a choice, honestly, if you ask me. Because, I mean, who do you think you are? Diablo 4 that you think that you can make 3 enemy types? And, well, who do you think you are? You think you're New World that can make 2 enemy types and the game's gonna be fine? No! Crash and burn, baby. But Dragon's Dogma... Yeah, people complain about it after 20 hours of gameplay, which is completely worth it.
Nature of fighting the same enemies in the sequel game, another problem is that DD2 has a much bigger map than DD1, which exacerbates the issue where enemies start feeling much more repetitive, as Itsuno and his team now had to fill up an even bigger map with even more of the same encounters, which causes even more friction among players when looking back at his previous statement of building your game around fun encounters to make things interesting. DD2 could simply have done with much more enemy variety because as it is currently, running around fighting the same enemies over and over gets incredibly tiring and frankly, boring after a while. Anyway, back to some of the things that I do like. I really like some of the armors and outfits in the game for, well, pretty obvious reasons. Yeah, I mean, do I really have to explain this to you? Yeah, I didn't think so. Oh, and as if we really need to talk about it that much, the character creation in DD2 is probably the best in terms of raw possibility in the entire gaming industry.
I don't know about that one. I'm not going to spend 15 minutes making my character. I'll barely spend 2 making a hot girl. But, hey, look at how better this is than Dragon Age Railguard. There we go. Bethesda, Starfield, all of this stuff. So easy. So easy. And look at that. You can actually make a hot woman. Wow. Shocking. Now, for the modern day, it's actually kind of shocking. So I'm not even joking.
Industry. Yeah, said it. DD2 has and still probably will have the most advanced character creator for years to come. I mean, did you see the amount of fan creations that were made before the game launched? You can often create almost one-to-one copies of actual people out there, and it's scary how much effort Itsuno and his devs put into only the character creator. I probably spent at least 10 hours alone on only making characters before the game came out. That's how good it is. Alright, let's see. So far into this video, I've praised the pawns.
Okay. A story is in characters. No one cares the literal story. Wait, I see an ass. Nice. No one... I love the story, by the way, now. Best story I have seen in my life. Now, this is the greatest story. By the way, short story summary. Someone's controlling the pawns. No one gives a shit. A giant dragon wants to be killed. You're the chosen one to kill it. Have fun. GG, Nori. I forgot what the brine was. It's no one cares the story, honestly. Now the biggest thing is I didn't really think it has DLC. Let me actually check. Dragon's Dogma 2 DLC sales. So let us check Dragon's Dogma DLC. Dragon's Dogma 2 sales on quarter 2 of 2024. There are 2 prominent sales in blah blah blah. Dragon's Dogma was full retail. Okay, let me actually do a thing now. DLC release date. Okay, let's actually check how. Oh, 3/22/2024. Okay, Steam the Dragon's Dogma. Let's see if the DLC was actually good. Oh, it has 500 players currently in the game. That is more than I expected, ain't gonna lie, boyos. Okay. Oh, it actually only had a peak of 27k K players, and that was 8 years ago. How does this even work? I forgot. Okay, so it released, which is the third month of the year, by the way. Absolutely no clue. So when did Dragon's Dogma 2 release even? January, February, March? Is it March? Yeah, March is the third. Okay, I'm gonna show you now. Wait, I'm gonna switch scenes because I found everything that I need to find. Okay. So this is when the DLC released. I don't understand how this works because Dragon's Dogma is completely invisible on Steam. And considering how many people watched it, play it, talk good about this, what is this? Are the Steam numbers right, or did it release on Steam later, or what happened? I don't remember this. This is so crazy. But in any case, now we can't actually tell how successful DLC was because we don't really need know the true numbers, which is kind of actually super sad. Oh wait, this is just Dragon's Dogma. Oh, here we go. I thought, what the fuck? Okay, there we go. Damn, that was pathetic. I didn't even notice that was the first Dragon's Dogma. Did they change this? Well, whatever. So, 228 peak. 6 months. When did it came out? So, it came out in March. A boon for adventurers. New journey pack is scheduled to be paid. Blah blah blah. Release content. The third month, because this is American dating, right? Third month, 2022. I'm so confused at this point. Well, in any case, Monday, March, May, April. Oh, this is 2020. No, this is 2024. Wait, what? I'm so confused. Where is the DLC in that case? Is there a DLC coming for Dragon's Dogma 2 will mostly be fine and blah blah blah, but a bonus Dragon's Dogma is coming year, significant expansion. Oh, but no one was DLC. Is the oh, wait. But this is the DLC. The Boon of Adventure Journey Packers. Wait, but it doesn't seem like the DLC is out. I'm so confused. None of this is shit. Either the DLC completely flopped, which is obviously not the case, or the DLC is not out. But DLC release is... Dude, did the stupid idiot who is running Google now completely ruin everything? Is Google so bad now it can't even answer me the simple question of a DLC release date? Is this real life? Oh my god. And this is exactly around the time that we're talking about unskilled, high-skilled labor, I should say, from India. Dude, this is a joke. You're telling me Google seriously can't answer me these simple questions? That is insane. In any case, 10 out of 10. That was by Mr. Hulten. 10 out of 10. A great video. Everyone loves Dragon Dogma. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.